Cross ice pass, score! Right off of the pass to the left side.
Good morning, hockey fans, and welcome back to Off the Post. I'm your host, Kyle Savetic, and I know that I've been a little delayed with the coming out of Off the Post lately. Personal life, things like that, don't get paid for this. So, sometimes personal things matter prior to me coming out with these podcasts. So I'm not going to be really covering the second round. I'm going to be more covering the team that advanced the second round and what they need to do to win their respective conference. So, for any updates or anything like that, make sure to follow me on Twitter at IIVTechII. That's IIVTECHII. Just reasonings, the other names taken, so I can't really use the VTech portion of it. I understand that's a video game company for little kids, or technology company, and a engine for Honda, but that's beside the point. So we're going to be covering just Boston and Carolina, where they went from the second round, who they beat, how many games it took, what they need to do to move on to the Stanley Cup. So tighten up your skates and let's go puck chasing. Let's get jump right into this one. So first of all, we got Boston Bruins. They faced a very fiery young Columbus Blue Jacket team. And I said in the last first show, basically, of Off the Post, I said, this is going to be a goaltender battle. Because you got Sergei Bobrovsky and Tuukka Rask. Okay, I know both teams can score. Both teams have that ability to play very good defense. But it'll come down to which goalie is better. In Game 6, to seal the deal, Tuukka Rask has a 39-save shutout. That's what was needed to be done in order for Boston to move on, was Tuukka Rask played out of his freaking mind. So did Sergei Bobrovsky. Boston is been there, they've done it. Tuukka Rask understands where he has to go in order to move on and be that productive person he is. And he initially just helped the team move on to the Eastern Conference Finals. The first two games, just to show what you're working with, the first two games went to overtime. Boston took the first game, but the second game went into double OT, and Columbus took that one. Now, I think, don't get me wrong, I don't know who quite said it. I thought it might have been Columbus's head coach. I'm not quite sure who said it. Not positive. Said they're, I would say, halfway through the series, or at least after Game 4, said, "Oh, we dented Tuukka Rask." Now, you don't say that kinds of things in a world of social media and a world of where people can get things in an instant. When someone says something like that, the whole team comes together and goes, okay, you want to talk crap, you want to say this, you want to say that, we're coming around and we're going to beat you. All right, and that's what ended up happening. They ended up winning those next two games and sealing the deal. So you have to be in the right state of mind before saying that. It worked out for Columbus in the first series because they were up 2-0, and Tampa Bay wasn't able to do anything, because I'm pretty sure the quote was something along the lines of, we are the only team to give Tampa Bay trouble this year. And I don't think that, when it comes back to the first, I know I'm kind of getting off track here, but it's the matter of kind of bringing the storyline together for you and understanding what I'm talking about. Tampa Bay, the only reason they won the President's Trophy is because they had offense. That's the only reason. Their goaltender, I have thoughts about him that I don't like him. I didn't think that he should be up for a Vezina Trophy just because of his wins. Because a lot of those wins came from the offense helping him out. That's the only reason why they won the President's Trophy. It's not like the other teams that you see win the President's Trophy that have all together put a good defense and a good goaltender together. They win those games that are need to be won by 1 or 2 goals because of their goaltender. You know, they win those tight games because the goaltenders are helping you out and the offense as well. But when you have a team that, when you blow people out all the time and you face a team that's hot, that's on fire, that's ready to come at you, yeah, you're going to be screwed because they're going to shut you down real quick. The playoffs are all about the teams that get hot. So when you look at those wild card teams, when you look at those teams that are placed third in their respective divisions, those are the teams you want to watch out for. Not the first, not the second place teams. It's those bottom teams that you got to watch out for because they have to fight themselves. They have to fight themselves into the playoffs. And while you're just kind of watching them going, okay, I got this team or maybe I got this team. So they already know if they make it, they already know who they're going to face. Right? So they, you know, they put their hopes and dreams on the line and they go right at it. Columbus went all out towards the trade deadline. And I think if the team was playing like that, I would say if they weren't fighting into the playoffs, they would have been put in a better spot and they might have come out differently. But it's just how the cookie crumbles. They put themselves in a situation where they were in the second wild card, that last wild card spot. They beat Tampa Bay, and they move on to Boston. But, you know, it's just one of them things that they can't control. But moving on to Boston, they know how to win games. That's what it comes down to. I would say there's 2 teams in these Stanley Cup playoffs left that know how to win games. That's San Jose and Boston. I'll get more into San Jose why later in the next podcast. But talking about Boston itself, right? You know, I was expecting this game to go at least 7 games, but it didn't. It went to 6. But for order of them to win and beat Carolina, yes, I understand the game's already been played, but this helps me understand the teams a little better, right? Because I would say, you know, if that game didn't happen, if the first game didn't happen, if I would have done this right away, I would have said Carolina's going to take the first game. Just on the brute ability for them to come out lightning fast, because that's the kind of team they are. But I'm going to get more into Carolina, what they need to do to win. What it comes down to with Boston is their power play. I think they were 3 for 5. Or 2 for 5. I think they have the best playoff percentage in the Stanley Cup playoffs this year. But what Boston has the ability to do is to get under people's skins. All right, I'm not saying that these players are dirty. Some people may say they are, but like Brad Marchand, they've said he's a bit of a dirty player, and Chara, who can lay out those big hits. You got a team that can get under people's skin. And when you have a team that's young and maybe not as disciplined, right? That's gonna bother them. And that's what it comes down to. It's gonna be one of those kinds of things. But in order for Boston to make it to the Stanley Cup Finals, they're going to have to rely on Tuukka Rask. Now, I don't like putting just one sole person on making it because you'll look at it and be like, well, the reason they lost is because of Tuukka Rask. No, if they don't make it through it, I don't like doing that, but he is going to be a major reason why they're going to make it to the Stanley Cup Finals. Is if Tuukka Rask can play out of his mind, you're gonna know if Tuukka Rask has an off night. You can't let Carolina become that storm that's going to come at you. Boston's leaders, Boston's fourth line, Boston's goaltender are going to be the key reason why they're going to make it through. I think it's going to come down to a battle of more of the third and fourth line than the first and second. because that's normally how the playoffs are. The first and second line, the first and second lines are the top tier lines, okay? You got the top tier lines going at it. They're going to battle it out. The second line, you could say they're just that top tier almost, and they're going to go at it. Those third and fourth lines, you're going to have one line, one team's going to have a better line than the other, right? It's not going to be as evenly matched. So that's what it's going to come down to. I mean, at this point also, the goaltenders, you can't say, you can say one goaltender is better than the other. But at this point, you're not going to face a weak goaltender. That's out of the question. I mean, on the Western side, you could say, well, maybe you can argue that point, but I'm gonna get into that later next podcast that I'll do. But let's get into the leaders of Boston. Patrice Bergeron, David Pastrnak, and Charlie Coyle are all tied with most goals at 6. Brad Marchand leads the team in 10 assists. He also leads the team in points at 15 as well. Patrice Bergeron, he is 60.19% in the faceoff dot. That leads the team. Tuukka Rask is 9-5 with a .938 save percentage and a 2.02 goals against with 1 shutout. Now, let's go ahead and shift gears to the Carolina Hurricanes. They beat the New York Islanders in 4, a clean sweep. I was surprised that it was a clean sweep, especially with Mrazek going out in Game 2. Just because of New York's defense, I would have said they could have calmed the storm a little bit, which they ended up not doing. This is a young team piggybacking off of Justin Williams and their leaders. All right, it's hard to swallow this pill because I'm a Blackhawks fan, and when you got Teuvo Teravainen, they got one more, I can't think of the name, but even in Boston side, you got Joakim Nordstrom. All these players that won a cup with Chicago in 15 are now, in the playoffs and fighting for a position to move on. And that's just still doesn't sit well with me. That's more on the managerial side. I'll probably talk about that in my other podcast, VTech Talks Blackhawks Hockey. That will be also another podcast you should check out if you're a Blackhawks fan, if you hate the Blackhawks, if you want to hear me talk about the Blackhawks, anything like that, you should definitely hear that out. Anyways, what really, really does impress me about Carolina is their grit and their grind. They show you that it doesn't matter what you do in the regular season. It's about where you get at the end of the regular season and what you can do in the playoffs. Because Carolina, you weren't even in the talk about the playoffs. They weren't really talked about it. And there's another team on the Western side, St. Louis. I think they were like last in the league, in January, and then they make it to, I believe they were the third or second overall. They were in that position for fighting for first in the Central. But that's the point. It's what you can do in the playoffs. If you get hot at the end of the year and you make it in, oh boy, you better watch out. All right, because it showed this year. All four wild card made it to the second round. Now, Carolina is the only team that made it through. But if all 4 make it through, that either means that somewhere along the line something got jacked up, or these teams didn't really decide, the chemistry together didn't really start going until that the last couple months of playing. And that's why I love hockey as far as, okay, let's bring in 2 wild card people. All right, let's just bring them in from each side. So you got 4 wild cards. When it comes down to it, you don't know what's going to happen. But it's just getting sidetracked. Let's talk about Carolina and their one weakness they have. Okay. Their one weakness they have is it shows that they can be very undisciplined. Dougie Hamilton had 2 penalties back to back, and I don't know if they scored on the the last one, but Boston scored 2 power play goals in like 28 seconds. It comes down to that Boston can get under your skin, okay? You can't let them get under your skin because you're going to make stupid penalties. You're going to make all this other stuff. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, you watch the game, you're like, hey, Kyle, wait, hold up. Wait a second. These refs were really calling a tight game. There was Dougie Hamilton's like second power penalty was an interference, kind of roughing. It was a roughing because the elbow, because he had an elbow up. But what was funny, because I was watching, I was like, I forgot who made the hit. I forget what Boston player made the hit. Hits a Carolina player, it's center ice. I'm thinking, they're calling interference like crazy. That's definitely going to be an interference call. And then all of a sudden, I'm looking at the scoreboard up top of the score clicker, and it says Carolina or Boston. It says Boston power play 2 minutes. I'm like, And it was a weird thing because the commentators really weren't talking about it. Not until the end of the game when the NHL overtime on NBCSN, they were talking about this penalty. The commentators really didn't know what was going on, and no one could get a clear definition of what happened. And Hamilton ended up getting, elbow. But you could say, well, they were calling a tight game. No, they were. And should that have been a 4-on-4? I mean, I don't know. They could say it was incidental. I mean, it kind of looked incidental to me. It's not like the Boston player just ran over the Carolina player. He tried to hold back. So, and the arm was up prior to that. And so I think at that point they were just like, all right, it was incidental contact, blah, 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 whatever. I don't like games that are decided by a penalty. Okay? But if you're going to be undisciplined about things, and you could say, well, he incidentally threw his elbow up, But if you're gonna be causing all these, Boston had like 5 power play, 3, 4. I think it was like 3 or 4 in the third period. That just tells me that they got under your skin, and now you're pissed off, and you're gonna take these dumb penalties. All right, that's what it comes down to. It was dumb penalties. It's not like it was like, oops, my mistake, my bad. When you have 2 interference or roughing penalties back to back, they're under your skin. That's the point where the coach pulls you out of the game and say, you're not going back out there. All right, because you're going to cost my team, and you already did. But that's what Boston does. They like to get under your skin. They want to get under your skin, right? They just want to do it. They're going to do it. You got to control yourself. Because you've seen it. If you watch the San Jose Vegas series, it shows you what happens when you take dumb penalties. And when a team gets under your skin, no matter if you're winning or losing, you either end up winning a game or just losing by a lot more. You can't let that happen. Alright? This is a big stage now. This ain't no regular season. This ain't nothing. This is the big stage now. All eyes are on you. And every mistake you make, everyone's going to see it and everyone's going to critique it. Okay? And that's what's going to happen. So Carolina, my advice to you is you do not want to take penalties. I would say if you take 3 or more penalties in a game, you're going to lose. And these penalties have to be good penalties. They have to be for a reason. I trust your goaltender enough, either both goaltenders enough, to say if it's going to be a penalty shot, I'm okay with that. If I'm a Carolina coach, I'm the Carolina coach, I say, all right, I'm fine with that. Because I trust the goaltenders enough not to let a puck go through. They need to keep the momentum going. They need to keep it going. They can't falter. They got to keep the momentum going. But that's going to, I'm done picking teams to win. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. My bracket has been so jacked up, and I was thinking, I'm not going to take any, how should I say it? In the second round, I picked the whole new bracket, whatever. I completely got destroyed. So I'm done picking people, because at this point, I don't know. This is the one year that I have not felt confident in picking a team to make it through. Okay? I don't feel it. I don't feel confident in it. I think the only wild card team I had going through was Dallas. I think that was the only wild card team I had going through was Dallas. I think I picked Boston right. I'm done. I'm done picking. So I'm just gonna give what each team needs to do to advance through, and what the mistakes are going to be. But let's go into Hurricanes leader Teuvo Teravainen, 6 goals. Jacob Selvin, 11 assists, also has 11 points that lead the team. Lucas Wallmark, a 53.7 face-off percentage. Peter Mrazek with 5 wins, and Curtis McHealy a 947 in the save percentage. And Peter Mrazek has 2 shutouts. Now, since both goalies have played in this game, in these playoffs, and especially in that second round, I'm gonna go through what they did, what their stats look like up to this point. Peter Mrazek, 10 games played, 5 wins, 4 losses, a 2.40 goals against, and a 907 save percentage, 2 shutouts. Curtis McHealy, 3 games played, 3 wins, 1.56 goals against average, and a 947 save percentage with 0 shutouts. If Carolina loses game 2 and it's more than 3 goals, I'm looking to put in McHealy. Now, I understand he's only gotten a tad bit of taste of these playoffs. Okay, I should say he played a game and a half. No, he played two and a half games. I'd say 2 games and 2/3. Okay, when he puts up numbers like that, okay, now he doesn't get credit with the shutout that he had technically because Mrazek gets that. If you lose more than 3, you got to look at putting him in. You need something to change. Now, I'm not saying that Peter Mrazek isn't your go-to guy. He's your guy that you have relied on. But if you lose by more than 3, I'm looking to put him in. Okay? Just because of change of pace. Maybe Peter Mrazek needs a little break. Okay? And this is a lot for a goalie to play constantly throughout the playoffs and play on his top game every night. Right? Like Tuukka is doing now. You could say, well, Tuukka could end up having a bad game. When do you want that bad game? Okay? Do you want that bad game in the beginning of the series or towards the end of the series? It's going to be one of those things that, you want Boston. If I was Boston, I was hoping, you get that one game lead. Okay, if you end up losing game 2 because Tuukka has a bad game, well, guess what? You had a bad game, right? It's all right. You'll be fine. But if Carolina, if Mrazek has a bad game, you got to look to switch things up. You are in the heat of things right now. You could say in football terms, your quarterback's, it's the Super Bowl. Your quarterback hasn't completed a pass in the first half and thrown 2 interceptions, right? And you got a backup quarterback who could equally be as good as your starting quarterback. And you're going to tell me you're just leave him on the bench, switch things up a little bit. That's what's going to need to end up happening. They need to switch things up. They got to look at something different. My favorite thing was during the regular season, Blackhawks fan, Crawford's out, Cam Ward's in. You could tell the difference between the 2 goaltenders. Okay? Cam Ward's playing, the offense plays a lot better. Corey Crawford's playing, the defense played a lot better. Now, if you're not a Blackhawks fan, you won't understand what I'm talking about with the whole offensive defense thing. But if you're a Blackhawks fan, you should understand what I'm talking about if you've watched the games. Anyways, that's gonna wrap that up for this podcast. So next, I'll be covering the matchup of San Jose Sharks and St. Louis Blues. But if you agree, disagree with anything I had to say, or want to discuss something, don't be afraid to comment or to go over to Twitter on my Twitter account is IIVTechII. Be sure to discuss things like that. If you have hockey fans, if you have hockey friends who enjoy the hockey and want to hear from a different perspective of not someone who has to be politically correct about everything, who is watching it from a fan's perspective, Be sure to share that with them. Share with your family, friends. Like I said, be sure to follow me on Twitter. Make sure you also follow me on the Spreaker as well, because that's who I upload my podcast with. So you get up to date when I go live, or not go live, but when I am posted up a new podcast. But I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, rest of your evening when we're watching this, and hopefully catch you in the next podcast.